The wind howled over the broken land, carrying dust and ash through the air. The sky was gray, the sun hidden behind thick clouds. Carter stood outside his tent, arms crossed, eyes on the figure that had just arrived. She was small, thin, and clearly not happy to be there. Her name was Jayla, and she was an alien girl from the Trell species, proud, fierce, and raised to hate humans. Carter had received her through a strange agreement between the colonies. Instead of jail time for her crimes, she was to serve under him for 1 year. It was supposed to teach her humility and peace, but as she stood in front of him with fire, in her eyes Carter had doubts. "You will follow my rules here," Carter said firmly. Jayla narrowed her glowing yellow eyes, arms folded across her chest. "I follow no human's command," she said coldly. Carter didn't flinch. "You will if you want food, shelter, and safety," he replied. Turning to enter the tent, she didn't move, but he heard her growl softly inside. The tent. Carter had only one bed, a table, some rations, and tools. He pointed to a roll-out mat on the ground. "That's yours," he said. Jayla looked at it like it was trash. "Not even a bed?" She sneered. "You're lucky to be alive," Carter replied, placing a ration bar in front of her. "Eat." She didn't eat. Instead, she took the ration bar and threw it outside the tent. Carter stared at her, calm but disappointed. "You'll be hungry then," he said quietly. Jayla sat in silence, arms still folded, eyes burning with pride and rage. That night, the wind got colder. Carter lay in bed, hearing her teeth chatter from the floor. She refused the extra blanket he offered. Turning her back to him, "Suit yourself," he said. She was stubborn, and she'd learn the hard way. The next morning, Carter found her gone. She'd taken nothing, no food, no water, no weapon, he muttered, throwing on his jacket. He followed her tracks into the canyon beyond the ridge. After 2 hours of walking, he spotted her collapsed near a rock. Her skin was pale blue, lips cracked, breathing weak. A sudden dust storm had surprised her. She had no idea how deadly this planet could be. Without a word, Carter picked her up and carried her back. She was light, too light. She had lost strength and pride in the same night. By the time she woke up, she was in his bed, warm and covered. He was sitting in a chair nearby, sharpening a knife but keeping an eye on her. Her eyes opened slowly, confused. "You didn't leave me out there," she whispered. "No," he said. "I don't leave people to die." Jayla sat up weakly, looking around. Her expression had changed, not much, but enough. She no longer looked like a fighter, but like someone who didn't understand what just happened. "Why?" she asked. "You could have let me die." "I don't hurt people who are already hurting," Carter replied, "even if they throw food at me." She looked down, shame on her face for the first time. But she didn't say sorry, not yet. "From now on, you stay close to the camp," Carter said. "You're not ready for this planet." Jayla didn't argue this time. That evening, she accepted the ration bar. She didn't thank him, but she didn't throw it away either. She ate in silence, sitting cross-legged in the corner of the tent. Carter glanced at her from time to time. She wasn't broken, not even close, but a small crack had opened in her wall. Before sleeping, she looked at the mat again. Without a word, she lay down on it, wrapped the blanket around herself, and turned her back. This time, Carter didn't offer anything. She had taken the first step on her own. Outside, the wind continued to howl, but inside the tent, something had shifted. Carter didn't smile, but he felt it. The fight wasn't over, but maybe, just maybe, it had truly begun. Carter had written the rules on a piece of metal and nailed it to the wall of the tent. He made it simple: 5 rules, clear and firm. 1. No weapons without permission. 2. No stealing. 3. No leaving camp alone. 4. No damage to supplies. 5. Respect each other's space. Jayla read the list again and again, her yellow eyes narrowing at each line. To her, it looked like a cage, a soft prison made of paper rules. Back in her tribe, rules came with beatings and scars. Here, Carter gave rules with no threat, no weapons, no shouting. It made her feel strange. Like she didn't know whether to obey or test them. For 2 days, she followed them silently. She ate the ration bars, helped clean the water filter, even sat by the fire. She said nothing, but watched everything. Carter treated her like an adult, not a child, and not a slave. He gave orders, but never forced her. And that was the problem. Jayla didn't understand kindness without a price. On the 3rd night, when Carter went out to repair the outer fence, she saw her chance. The storage chest was locked, but Carter had shown her the key once. He had trusted her. Now she wanted to see what was inside, not because she needed anything, but because she could. Her fingers moved fast, muscle memory from years of surviving on her own. The key clicked, the lid opened, and there it was, a small pulse blade, folded neatly beside old military gear. She grabbed it, feeling its familiar weight, the humming vibration in her palm. A rush of power filled her chest, the kind she hadn't felt since before her capture. She turned it on, the blue edge glowing softly in the dark. Then, put it down. Carter's voice came from behind her, steady and calm. Jayla froze, her back still turned. I just wanted to see it, she said quickly, hiding the fear in her voice. That's not your choice, he replied. Walking forward, you know the rule. She turned, blade still in hand. You said no weapons without permission, she said, standing tall. What if I give myself permission? You can't, Carter said, because you're not in command here. For a long moment, they stood facing each other. Jayla held the blade tight, her pulse racing, but Carter didn't reach for a weapon, didn't even raise his voice. He just looked at her like he already knew the ending. You want to fight? He asked. Go ahead. She blinked, surprised. You think power comes from blades and anger, he said, stepping closer. But you've never faced someone who fights with rules. Jayla's hands trembled, the blade still lit, but something in her mind cracked. She didn't feel strong, she felt foolish. Carter didn't take the weapon from her. Instead, he pointed toward the shed behind the tent. You broke the rules, he said, so now you'll spend the night in there. Her mouth dropped open. You're locking me up? No, Carter said. You'll lock yourself in. She stared at him like he had lost his mind, but when she didn't move, he stepped aside. I won't force you, he said, but if you ever want my trust again, you'll go now. Jayla stood frozen, then slowly turned off the blade. She placed it back into the box, closed the lid, and walked toward the shed. Her steps were slow, unsure, like walking through a dream she didn't understand. Inside the small shed, there was a mat, a blanket, and nothing else. The door shut behind her with a soft click from inside. She could hear the wind picking up outside. For the first time, she felt not punished, but corrected. No one yelled, no one struck her, and yet, the silence felt heavier than any punishment before. The hours passed slowly. She thought about the tribe, how they would have beaten her for stealing, how they praised her. Only when she spilled blood, and then she thought about Carter, who didn't even raise his hand. When the door opened at dawn, she was already awake. Sitting cross-legged on the mat, Carter didn't speak. He just nodded toward the fire. She walked out quietly and sat down near the flames. He handed her a ration bar. She took it without a word. I broke your rule, she said after a while. Yes, he replied, poking the fire with a stick. But you didn't punish me. I did, he said. You just don't recognize it yet. She looked at him, confused. He met her gaze. Calm and steady, you have power, he said, but you don't know how to carry it. Jayla turned her eyes to the fire. She wasn't ready to say sorry, but deep down, she wanted to know more about him, about this strange discipline. That didn't come with pain. She still didn't follow every rule, but for the first time she started to respect them. Jayla walked slowly behind Carter, her eyes scanning the rocky ground as they searched for wild roots. He moved with calm steps, stopping now and then to show her what plants were safe. She didn't speak much, But she listened more than before. Carter noticed it. The way she now asked small questions, not about escape, not about war, just about how to live. But what neither of them knew was that they were not alone. Far beyond the trees, just past the red stones, a pair of glowing yellow eyes watched. From the shadows, then another set, and another. 5 in total members of Jayla's tribe, hidden behind cloaking netting, faces painted in ash and bone. They had followed her since the day she vanished, thinking the human had enslaved her. Now they watched in silence, waiting for a sign to strike. "He walks in front of her," whispered one. "She follows him like a tamed pet." "She wears no blade," said another. "She must be under mind control." But the elder among them, a tall female with cold silver markings, said nothing. Her eyes stayed locked on Jayla, not with hatred, but confusion. Back at the camp, Carter handed Jayla a small container of water. She drank carefully, not wasting a drop. Then for the first time she said something unexpected. "Why did you come here?" Carter looked up, surprised. "This planet?" "No," she said softly. "This life." Carter leaned back against a rock, staring at the sky. "I was tired of orders," he said. "Tired of blood, noise, and killing. I was like you once," he added. "Always angry, always fighting." Jayla looked away, but she didn't walk off. She listened in silence, her fingers tracing a line in the dirt beside her. In the trees above, one of the watchers shifted too loudly. Snapping a branch, Carter stood up fast, reaching for the knife on his belt. Jayla jumped up too, back stiff, eyes scanning the woods. "I heard that," Carter said, low and calm. Jayla's voice was colder, sharper. "They're watching," she whispered. He raised an eyebrow. "Who?" "My people," she said, and her voice was shaking not with fear, but with something heavier. "They came to take me back." Carter didn't ask why. He simply nodded once. "Do you want to go with them?" Jayla's fists clenched, her nails digging into her palms. "I don't know," she admitted. "I don't know who I am anymore." At the edge of the trees, the tribe leader narrowed her eyes. "She is hesitating," she muttered. "She's been poisoned by the human's weakness." One of the warriors moved forward, but the elder raised her hand. "Not yet," she said. "Let her choose." That night, Carter didn't mention the watchers again. He gave Jayla a tool kit and asked her to help fix the heater. She didn't argue, just sat beside him, asking quiet questions, turning bolts, learning slowly. She burned her finger once and cursed in her own language. Carter just laughed, handed her a cold cloth, and said, "Welcome to real life." Later, Jayla lay on her mat, staring at the tent's roof. She couldn't sleep. Her mind was a war. Zone one side pulling her toward her tribe, the other toward the man who had never raised a hand against her. He hadn't tried to break her. He'd given her space, discipline, and something scarier than punishment, respect, in the woods. The tribe waited, growing restless. "If she doesn't come back by dawn," one growled, "we take her by force." "She is ours," another hissed. "No one abandons the clan." But the elder's voice cut through the dark. "Let her decide." At dawn, Jayla stood outside the tent, hair blowing in the soft wind. Carter stepped beside her, sipping a hot drink from a metal mug. "Rough night?" he asked casually. She didn't answer right away. Then she said something he didn't expect. "If they come for me, I'll talk to them, not fight?" He asked. "Not unless they try to chain me again," she said. "I won't go back to being property." Carter gave a slow nod. "That's your choice. But will you stand by me?" she asked. He didn't even blink. "I already have," he replied. "Every day since you walked into my camp." The trees rustled in the distance. Jayla stepped forward, her back straight, hands open, not holding weapons, and hidden among the trees. Her people waited. Tonight, a confrontation would come, but for the first time in her life, Jayla wasn't running from it. The forest was too quiet. Even the wind didn't move through the trees that morning. Carter noticed it first, pausing beside a tree with a broken branch. "No birds," he muttered. Scanning the horizon, Jayla looked around too. Frowning, "There's no sound," she whispered. "Not even bugs." Carter crouched and touched the soil. Tracks, big ones, too wide for a normal animal, too deep. "It wasn't just passing through. It's a stalker beast," he said. Voice calm but serious. Jayla's eyes widened. "They hunt alone," she said. "And they don't stop once they pick a target." She stepped back instinctively, hand reaching for her side, where no blade hung. Carter looked at her. "Don't panic," he said. "It smells fear." She froze, remembering her childhood stories about the creature. It could run faster than any mount, tear armor like cloth, and melt into shadows. They moved quickly back toward camp, Carter in front, Jayla behind. But the silence grew heavier with each step. When they reached the clearing, Carter stopped suddenly. A deep growl came from the left side of the tent. Then a shape moved, huge, dark, and low to the ground. The stalker beast stepped into the open. It was at least 10 feet long, covered in thick black fur. Its eyes were glowing red, jaw wide and dripping with yellow saliva. Its claws scraped the ground as it sniffed the air. It saw Jayla first, and its growl became a snarl. Jayla stood frozen, breath caught in her throat. Her body remembered the fear before her mind did. As a child, she had seen one take her cousin in a single strike. Now it was in front of her, real and deadly. Carter stepped forward slowly, placing himself between her and the beast. "Go inside," he said without turning his head. Jayla didn't move. I can't," she whispered. "You can," he said firmly. Now, the beast lunged fast, powerful, and silent. Carter grabbed a spear from beside the tent and rolled to the side just in time. The beast slammed into the ground where he had stood, claws tearing through the dirt. Carter moved fast, jabbing the spear into its side. It screamed and twisted away. Jayla stumbled back, falling onto her hands. Watching in horror, she had trained in battle, held swords, even fought warriors. But this wasn't a fight, this was survival, and she couldn't move. Carter fought alone, striking and dodging, his body bleeding from a cut on his leg. The beast knocked the spear from his hands and roared in his face. Jayla's heart pounded, her hands clenched, her throat dry. She wanted to help, but she couldn't breathe. She was frozen, useless, ashamed. The beast pounced again. Carter grabbed a burning log from the fire pit and shoved it into its face. The flames hit its eyes, it screeched and backed away, thrashing wildly. Smoke rose. The beast roared. And then finally it ran off into the trees. The sound faded slowly into the distance. Carter dropped the log and fell to his knees, gasping for air. His arm was bleeding badly, his shirt torn and burned. Jayla rushed to him, tears filling her eyes. I couldn't move," she said. "I failed you." He looked up, pain in his eyes but not anger. "You didn't fail me," he said. "You froze." "I was weak," she whispered. "No," he replied. "You were scared, and that's human." She helped him into the tent, shaking as she cleaned his wounds. Her hands moved faster than ever before, gentle but firm. Carter didn't complain about the pain. He just watched her in silence. "You saved me," she said, voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't think I mattered." Carter winced as she wrapped his arm in cloth. "You do now," he said. "You're not just someone I'm responsible for. You're my partner here." Jayla lowered her eyes, something heavy pressing in her chest. "I don't deserve that." "You'll learn to," he said gently. "The only thing you have to do is not give up on yourself." Outside the tent, the wind returned, brushing softly through the trees. The birds slowly started singing again, but Jayla didn't hear them. Her ears were focused on Carter's slow, steady breathing. Her mind was full of guilt, but something else too, a fire, not of rage or rebellion, but of purpose. That night, Jayla stayed awake, sitting beside him, sharpening a new spear. She didn't speak much, but her eyes stayed fixed on the trees. She wasn't going to freeze again next time. If danger came, she would be ready, because now she had something to protect. Jayla stirred the soup slowly, her hand moving in circles while her thoughts spun faster. She glanced at Carter, who lay on his side. His arms still bandaged, eyes closed. He had slept through the night for the first time since the beast attack. But his face was pale, his body weak, and she was the reason why she wanted to say it. Thank you. Just those 2 words, but every time she opened her mouth, her chest tightened. Her tribe had no word for it. Not really. There was honor, duty, survival, but no soft things like thank you. The morning passed quietly. Jayla gathered wood, boiled water, even cleaned his boots without being asked. Carter didn't speak much, but he watched her, his eyes warm with quiet understanding. He knew she was trying, but he didn't push her. Later, as the sun reached its peak, Carter sat up slowly and reached for a datapad. Do you want to learn how to use one of these? He asked, his voice hoarse. Jayla blinked in surprise. You want me to learn your tech? You're here, aren't you? He said, might as well learn something useful. She sat beside him, careful not to bump his bandaged arm. He showed her how to turn it on, how to swipe, how to bring up maps and messages. Her hands fumbled at first, but she learned fast. Carter smiled faintly. You're smarter than you act. I'm smarter than you think, she replied with a smirk. And for the first time, they laughed together when evening came. Jayla brought in more firewood and set up the fire herself. She didn't ask Carter if it was good enough. She just did it, and he let her. The trust between them had grown, but something inside her still ached. As he lay by the fire, she stood in the doorway of the tent, staring at him. She opened her mouth, then closed it again, then again, her lips forming the shape of words that never came out. Carter noticed, of course. Something wrong? He asked softly. Jayla looked away. No, she said too quickly. Want to talk? She shook her head, but her fists were clenched at her sides. He didn't press, just leaned back against the rolled-up blankets. You know, he said, in my world, it's normal to say thank you when someone does something kind. Jayla turned her face away, but her voice cracked. In mine, we're taught to repay kindness with obedience or silence. And which one are you giving me? Carter asked. She didn't answer. Minutes passed, the fire crackling. Then Jayla walked over, sat beside him, and stared at the flames. I never said it to anyone, she whispered. Not once. You don't have to, Carter said gently. Your actions already told me. But I want to, she said, and her voice shook like the flames before a wind. I want to say it. She turned her head, eyes glistening under the firelight. She stopped, breath hitching. Her throat closed like a wall, her mouth trembling. Carter placed a hand on her shoulder. You don't have to force it, he said. She shook her head, teeth clenched. I do, she whispered, because no one else ever deserved it. She took a shaky breath, closed her eyes, and finally said it. Thank you. 2 words, barely louder than a breath, but Carter heard them. And for a moment, neither of them moved. He smiled, not wide, not big, just enough to let her know it mattered. You're welcome, he said simply. That night, the stars were clear for the first time in weeks. Jayla stepped outside the tent and looked up, arms crossed. The stars didn't judge, didn't expect anything. They just listened. She whispered things to them she'd never told anyone. How she used to steal food as a child, how her tribe only valued her when she fought. How she used to dream of being free, but never thought freedom would be so quiet. And now, that quiet had a name, Carter. She didn't know what she was becoming. Not a soldier, not a servant, something in between. Something new when she returned. Inside, Carter was already asleep, his chest rising and falling slowly. Jayla placed the datapad beside his pillow and sat by the fire. She didn't cry, not yet, but her heart felt lighter. She didn't belong to anyone anymore, but somehow, in this place with no walls, no chains, and one wounded human, she finally started to belong to something. The morning was silent, too silent. Carter opened his eyes slowly, blinking against the pale sunlight that filtered through the tent flap. He reached over to check the fire, now cold, then looked toward the mat where Jayla usually slept. It was empty. Her pack was gone. The datapad still in its place. No note, no sound, no warning, just silence. Carter sat up quickly, pain flashing through his injured arm. But he ignored it, pulled on his boots, grabbed a flare, and stepped out of the tent. He knew where she had gone. He didn't need a trail. She was heading toward them. Jayla had felt it in her bones since the night she said thank you. Her people were waiting, watching. She couldn't rest until she faced them. She walked alone through the brush, her steps quiet but steady. Every noise made her heart pound. But she didn't stop. She reached the stone ridge by midday, and there they were, just as she remembered 5 members of her tribe, dressed in ash-gray armor, faces hard as rock. At the front stood Vera, the tall female elder with silver stripes across her cheeks. "Jayla," Vera said, her voice like frozen water. "You've returned." Jayla stood still, fists clenched. At her sides, "I didn't come back to rejoin," she said. "I came to speak." The warriors around Vera growled low, but she raised a hand to silence them. "You live with the human now," she said, her yellow eyes narrowing. Jayla nodded. "He saved me when no one else would." Vera stepped forward. "And what did he teach you?" Jayla looked her in the eye. "To choose," she said simply. "Not to obey out of fear, but to follow with respect." The other warriors laughed harshly. "Human weakness," one spat. "Soft words for a soft heart," said another, but Vera didn't laugh. She watched Jayla in silence, then said, "You were our best weapon. Our fiercest blade." "I'm not a weapon anymore," Jayla said. "I'm a person." Behind her, branches snapped. Everyone turned. Carter stepped into the clearing, breathing hard, his wounded arm wrapped tight. He looked at Jayla, eyes full of worry. "You left without a word," he said. "I had to," she replied. "But I didn't run away. I faced them." Vera raised her brow. "And the human came chasing like a lost mate." Carter didn't react to the insult. "I came because she matters," he said. "You don't abandon those who matter." One of the warriors stepped forward, blade drawn. "You dishonor us by siding with an outsider." Jayla stepped in front of Carter. "I dishonor you by being more than a tool," she shouted. "I make my own choices now." Another warrior moved to circle them, but Carter pulled a flash grenade from his belt. "I don't want to fight," he warned, "but I won't let you take her by force." The warriors hesitated. Carter's eyes were calm, deadly. He didn't look like much, but they sensed something dangerous beneath his quiet voice. Vera raised her hand again, and the others stepped back. She studied Carter for a long moment. Then Jayla, finally she spoke. "You were always different," she said to Jayla. "You asked too many questions, felt too much. That's why I survived." Jayla replied. Vera nodded slowly. "Then go," she said. "But know this, if we meet again in battle, I won't hesitate." Jayla's voice was steady. "Neither will I." The tribe melted back into the forest, shadows fading between trees. Jayla stood still for a moment, shaking, then finally turned to Carter. "I thought I had to finish this alone," she said. "You don't," he replied gently. "Not anymore." They walked back toward camp side by side, the silence between them peaceful, not heavy, not awkward, just real. When they reached the tent, Carter winced as he sat down. Jayla looked at his arm and shook her head. "You followed me while still injured. You expected anything less?" He said with a tired grin. She looked at him, eyes soft but serious. "Thank you," she said again, stronger this time. "You already thanked me," he replied. "This time, I mean it even more," she said, and she meant every word. That night, the fire crackled gently. Carter slept in peace, and Jayla sat guard outside. Spear across her knees, she was no longer just surviving. She was protecting something, someone, because she chose to, and for the first time since she was born, her heart felt like it belonged somewhere real. Not to a tribe, not to a flag, but to a choice she made with her own hands. The next few days passed without danger. No beasts, no tribe, no chaos. Just the quiet rhythm of life. Fix the water pump, clean the filter, gather firewood, cook meals, simple things. But for Jayla, they meant everything. She no longer waited for orders. She didn't question Carter's tasks, nor did she resist. She chose to help, because now she wanted to stay. One morning, Carter handed her a set of metal parts. "Your own communicator," he said. "I figured you should build it yourself." Jayla looked down at the wires, the broken shell, the screen. She blinked, confused. "You trust me with this?" "I trust you with more than that," he said, smiling faintly. She didn't smile back, but her fingers tightened around the parts like they were precious stones. They worked side by side for hours, not talking much, just quiet repairs and the warmth of company. Carter coughed a few times, his wound still healing. Jayla watched him out of the corner of her eye. Every time he winced, her chest ached. At night, she moved her mat closer to his, not saying a word. But when he opened his eyes in the dark, he found her already watching him. "I'm not afraid anymore," she whispered. "I know," he replied. "You've changed." Jayla looked at her hands, once used for stealing, cutting, fighting. Now they were fixing things, making food, healing wounds. "I don't even recognize myself," she said. "That's not a bad thing," Carter answered. "It means you're growing." The next day, Carter tested her. He stepped back from camp and said, "Today you lead." Jayla frowned. "What if I mess up?" "Then we fix it together," he said. Her jaw tightened. Then she nodded once. She directed the repairs, found a damaged cable, replaced it, rerouted the power. She made 2 mistakes, but she corrected them without fear. By evening, the camp's power grid was fully functional for the first time in weeks. Carter clapped once, slow and proud. "You did it." "I didn't do it alone," she said. "No," he replied. "But you could have." That night something stirred in Jayla's chest. It wasn't pain, it wasn't fear, it was longing. She sat beside the fire and stared into the flames. Carter lay on his back, looking at the stars. After a long pause, she said, "You were more than kind to me." Carter raised an eyebrow. "I was just fair." "No," she said. "You were patient, strong, and stubborn." He chuckled. "I'll take that as a compliment." Then came the words that had been building inside her for weeks. "You taught me more than my tribe ever did," she said. "You taught me how to think, how to live, how to be without fear." Carter sat up slowly, eyes focused on her. "You were always strong," he said. "I just helped you see it." She turned her head toward him, her eyes shining, not with tears, but something deeper. "I called you my captor, then my enemy," she said. "But now, I call you my teacher." Carter's chest tightened. There was no pride in his eyes, only warmth, only quiet respect. "You're not a student anymore," he said gently. She shook her head, stepping closer. "Then I call you something else," she whispered. "My home." The fire popped softly. The wind gently moved the tent flaps. Carter didn't speak, didn't need to, because in that moment, no words were needed. She had said everything. They sat side by side in silence, not as human and alien, not as master and servant, but as two souls who had found peace in each other. The next morning, Jayla woke early. She packed supplies, loaded the tools, and prepared breakfast. Carter raised an eyebrow as he stepped out of the tent. "Going somewhere?" "No," she said with a smirk. "Just making sure our home runs smoothly." He laughed, and for the first time, it was a full laugh, no weight, no pain. Jayla joined him, and it echoed across the quiet hills. The girl who once defied every order now stood guard over their shared world, not because she had to, but because she chose to. And if anyone ever tried to take that from her again, they'd face something far stronger than anger. They'd face a girl who had learned the hardest lesson of all, that discipline is not fear, it is freedom.